Graham Platner. Graham, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks a lot, Brian. It's good to be back.
So we have some big news about your opponent, the Republican incumbent, Susan Collins, that just broke a couple of days ago in the Rolling Stone. I'm going to put the headline right here on the screen. Susan Collins raked in Wall Street cash before advancing Trump tax bill. Blackstone billionaire Steve Schwarzman gave $2 million to Collins' super PAC a day before she voted to advance Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. So the reaction to the fact that you have this self-proclaimed moderate senator who is just basically openly being bought by moneyed interests to be able to advance a bill that ultimately cut healthcare, cut food assistance to the poorest Americans, including the poorest folks in your state.
I mean, to be honest, I'm not in any way, shape, or form surprised. I also don't think that many people in Maine are going to be all that surprised. Susan Collins has been the epitome of an establishment politician this whole time. To find out that she's receiving money from the groups and the interests that are going to benefit from massive tax cuts for corporations at the detriment to Medicaid and Medicare funding. I'm not that is, I think, to be expected. I think it also, sadly, at this point, just shows why we are beyond time when it comes to replacing her as the senator from the state of Maine. 62,000 Mainers are going to lose health coverage because of the cuts to Medicaid and Medicare in a state of 1.3 million. It's a lot of
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
And those are not people who can afford these kinds of losses. We're not talking about wealthy people here. And the fact that that is all done in the service of tax cuts to the ultra wealthy, the fact that that is that she moved this thing along after receiving that much money from the interests that benefit from it. I mean, it's not science rockets. It's fairly easy to see where all this comes from and why it all happens.
Well, I think that disparity between you, for example, and Susan Collins is why your campaign is garnering so much enthusiasm. You recently appeared at a rally with Bernie Sanders that had thousands of people in attendance. That's really garnered national attention here. So can you talk a little bit about the feeling that you had in that room and why your campaign is standing out the way that it is?
One was just the sheer energy of the people that came. I mean, it was a day off. It was on Labor Day.
Yeah.
Um, People came down from. I was getting texts all day from folks who I know across the state who were like, "We're driving down to Portland for the rally." Um, we filled out the stadium. It was 6,500 seats. It was packed, and everyone in the room very clearly is like has just been in many ways like waiting to be engaged. And now that they are, like it like we yeah, it was palpable. I mean, I don't really know how to explain it. It was like a physical feeling of being in the room. It wasn't just about giving a speech. It wasn't just about being in front of people, but there was this energy in the room where it felt everybody was there and everybody was connected. And it was quite spectacular.
Talk to me about the partisan breakdown, because that's something that's always nagging, is like, okay, we see these rallies, but are they just Democrats? Are they folks who would vote for anybody who is not Susan Collins, for example? And so how does that break down? How have your conversations with folks who you've met across Maine, not just at that rally but elsewhere, give us some insight into the kind of people that your campaign's attracting?
Well, one at the rally alone, I know two people who I know have voted Republican in the past were at the rally.
Yeah.
Um, they drove a ways to get there, and they were amped. And that honestly, that tracks with much of the feedback I'm receiving as I still kind of move around like my small community, but also move around the state and interact with new folks. There are an immense amount of people who tell me that they voted for Trump or who tell me that they didn't vote in the last election, who tell me that this message, this candidacy, is the thing that is like reanimating them politically, for a myriad of reasons. But I think primarily it's the fact that it's I they know that I'm just a dude from,
Yeah.
from from like a small town in Maine. Um, there's clearly like a level of authenticity that like people can just kind of connect with. Which is weird for me because I'm mostly just here being myself. So I
Yeah.
like I get it, but I also then that makes me feel like I'm doing something, but I'm not doing something. I'm not
Yeah.
really sure how to quite explain that.
No, I get that.
But there has been this just like this immense amount of feedback of people who it is clear had become so disillusioned with politics that they had either voted for Trump in a hope to like get some big change that was coming that they're not getting, or for a lot of people, and this is mostly like the independents and unenrolled voters, they just sat the last one out.
Yeah.
They real I mean they and they're not they didn't disengage because they're apathetic. They didn't disengage because they're not politically like curious or politically informed. In fact, in many ways, they're so politically informed that they just saw a political system that was not going to respond to their needs at all. And so they decided to just check out of the system. And I'll be honest, I mean, it's not, that was not my answer, but I don't blame anybody for
Yeah.
that. I can understand that feeling. The amount of folks who've come up to me just in the past 2 weeks who have expressed an interest in re-registering as a Democrat so they can vote in the primary, even though they don't even have to because Maine has open primaries. But it is clear that a lot of folks were just looking for the energy and for the kind of message that they wanted to see, and in many ways was the message I wanted to see, and that's why we're here. And the feedback has just been yeah, it's like overwhelming how positive it's been.
Talk to me a little bit about the things that Trump promised these people. And granted, we know in retrospect the extent to which this was a bill of goods because this guy ran on promises of, I mean, he was talking about the cost of eggs,
Yeah,
literally like the cost of an egg. So this guy was cosplaying as a populist, talked about groceries, about rent, about housing, about these issues that actually impact people, got into office, surrounded himself with gold plating in the Oval, moved forward with a $200 billion ballroom, started hosting crypto dinners, and ultimately passed a tax cut where the rewards are disproportionately heaped onto millionaires and billionaires, all the while stripping away Medicaid from 17 million Americans and cutting
yeah.
food assistance to the tune of $350 billion. And so talk about what he promised these people, how they're reacting to it right now, and just a broader sense of like, are these Trump voters? Are these Republican voters? Or are they still up for grabs?
I think a lot of them are up for grabs. And I'll just say this, like here in this part of Maine, at least the part of Maine that I spend most of my time in, people were told that tariffs were going to somehow create all this money that was going to then get injected into the government that was somehow going to, without any kind of explanation, bring the cost of everything down,
Yeah.
and that it was going to pay for all these programs. Of course, I mean, we know that that's
Right. I mean,
nonsense.
the irony is that the tariffs
I
unto
know,
themselves are a consumption
just a
tax. And so
tax.
inherently, those will bring the prices of everything up.
Well, and that's the thing. I know a lot of folks who are in construction, in contracting.
Yeah.
They are watching costs go up 20, 30, 40%. And the people that are selling them the goods are telling them that it's because of the tariff uncertainty. I know several people who are definitely Trump supporters. I know they've told me that they're Trump supporters, and all they tell me every day I see them now is Trump is destroying this country
Yeah.
because prices are going up. And they were told prices were not going to go up. They were told prices were going to just go through the floor and everything was going to be affordable again. What is important for us, I think, as Democrats, what is important for us as the opposition when it comes to authoritarianism, when it comes to the rise of fascism, we need to be there ready to give people the actual answers as to why their material existence is getting worse. And that, I mean, in many ways, that is the core of my campaign. Things are going to get worse. Here in Eastern Maine, we have a hospital system that is hanging on by a thread, and that thread is Medicaid and Medicare. And that thread just got cut.
Yeah.
So things are going to get worse. And as they get worse, as the material conditions of people's lives continue to get worse, we need to be there with a real answer, not just as to why it's happening, but also how we are going to fix it. And it needs to be understandable. It needs to be clear. I mean, that's why I'm a big Medicare for all person. We need the days of playing around in the margins with vague language
Yeah.
are over. We cannot do that. People think you're lying to them because often you are. You're trying to tell them you're going to make it better without telling them how you're going to make it better. We need policy. We need very clear, concrete policy to point to say, this is why your life is bad, and this is how we are going to make it better. If we don't do that, I fear that as things get worse, people will continue to be able to be sucked in by right wing populism, by blaming minorities, blaming immigrant groups, blaming those that can't protect themselves, because that's just how this works. I mean, that's how right wing populism thrives.
Yeah.
And I think those people are gettable because I hear from them all the time that like they know what's going on. They're aware of it. They're just looking for somebody to give them an answer, and they will respond positively when they get one.
Why do you think it's okay, acceptable, encouraged, and even rewarded when Republicans and Trump specifically promise to upend the system, and yet Democrats often don't run that way? I mean, Democrats will figure out some position that is so safe, so unoffensive, so circumspect that it offends the least amount of people, that once it's poll tested and focus grouped into oblivion and again doesn't have is not controversial, and sanitized to within an inch of its life, that we end up with policies that are often just some small incremental continuation of something that we've had before, or even worse, just deferring to upholding norms or institutions. So why that asymmetry, and how is your campaign looking to break through that?
The reason that this stuff worked from the Trump administration, the reason it worked from Republicans, is that at its core, they at least told people that something that they knew was true was true. What people know is that they live in a system that is not built to represent them
Yeah.
at all. They know that. They can feel it, they can see it every day. If you go around the United States, you go find any working person, Trump voter, Democrat, progressive, conservative, go find anybody that works for a living and you ask them, do you think that you live in a political system and an economic system that has your best interest at heart? Nobody says yes. Everybody says no.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that they're living in a larger system that is built to screw them.
Yep.
At least Trump and the Republicans told people that was true.
Right.
And when you tell people that a thing that they know in their bones is true, they're willing to forgive a lot of other stuff.
Right.
And I think the problem that we have been finding, and that I think and it's a problem because we've done it to ourselves, is that when people say this system is screwing me, and we say, no, 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 no. Actually, what we need to be doing is protecting these institutions. We need to be, and I'm utterly convinced that when Democrats talked in the last election about protecting democracy, a lot of people out there heard protecting the status quo.
Yeah.
And people don't want to hear that. People want to be told that the thing that they know is true is, and that is they live in a system that does not represent them. And they are right, by the way. They are right that the
Right.
system does not represent them. That's why we have a healthcare system that is built around extracting money out of poor people instead of providing services. That's why that exists. And people know that's why it exists. And I think that the success of our campaign thus far, but I also think the future of the Democratic Party is to run candidates and run campaigns that can speak to that angst with real solutions that are based in the reality that people find themselves living in. And when you focus group and poll test and you go so far into trying to come up with solutions that will not offend or bother anyone,
Right.
you wind up with solutions that won't fix anything.
Yeah.
And you got to take risks. The big one, though, is that we need to turn the Democratic Party into a big tent party that is welcoming to essentially everyone except for billionaires, unless they are a-okay with paying some more taxes, in which case, party on, uh, and corporate interests.
Yeah.
And we also need to make sure we are not a party that is going to abide racism, homophobia, transphobia, any of the progressive things that we have fought for generations. We are not taking any steps back on that. But as long as you as long as you think that taking care of people and building community is what we should be doing as a society, then you should have a place in our party. And the only people that shouldn't have a place are massive corporate interests. And I would like them to just go back to being represented by the Republican Party, which is how it once was.
Yeah. Perfectly put. For folks who are watching right now who are looking to donate to your campaign, to help you out, where can they go?
So grahamforsenate.com. And we definitely, even though we're seeing massive success, we need all the help we can get. It's been made immensely clear to us that there will be no help from on high. We're not taking super PAC money. We're not taking corporate money. And for that reason, we're relying on individual donors. Please donate what you can. I'm a guy that works with my hands. I know that even $1 to $5 can sometimes be a lot. If you can give it, please give it. But the big thing that we need is you and your time, especially if you live in the state of Maine. So if you live in the state of Maine, or if you live elsewhere and you want a phone bank, you want to help with volunteering behind the scenes, however it is, we need your help because we are trying to build legitimately a movement of people here, not just an old-fashioned political campaign.
Excellent.
So grantforsenate.com, donate what you can, but please volunteer if you can. That for me is the big one.
Awesome. I'm going to put that link to your website right here on the screen and also in the post description. Highly recommend for anybody who's watching, who's looking to help, who knows that they're going to help in the 2026 election anyway. Do it now. Do it early. Give Graham the opportunity to define himself to the people of Maine before his opponents define him for him. So this is important to do it right now, to get this money out right now when it matters most. So again, that link is on the screen and also in the post description. Graham, I appreciate your time. Best of luck in the campaign trail.
Hey, thank you, Brian. I really appreciate it.